Hello, welcome to chapter 14 of Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money. Chapter 14 is Your Change. And another brilliant chapter, what can I say? Chapter 14 starts with a look at the fact that there's this psychological concept called the end of history illusion, let's call it. And that's the idea that people always think that the person they are now, today, is the person they'll always be. But that's not true. So you're different when you're, a child to what you are when you're a teenager, to what you are when you're an adult, to what you are when you're middle-aged, to what you are when you're elderly. Different stages in your life, age-wise, different stages in your life, career-wise. But people always think, okay, that's it, I'm me now. This is who I'm meant to be. But you keep changing. How does this relate to the psychology of money? It relates to planning and it relates to careers. One of the things that Morgan says in this chapter, which I thought was really, really interesting, was some of the most miserable people he's ever met are people who decided on a career at college, or when they were a child, or when they were 18, something like that, or in their early 20s, and then stuck at it forever. They're extremely miserable because they are now in a career that may as well have been made for them by a stranger, because they're no longer that person, but they go through hell just to stay in that career. And then as a contrast to that, because they've stayed in a career, that no longer suits them, that no longer meets their plans, no longer meets their desires, of course they're going to be miserable, right? The psychology of money, it's not all about how do I tune my psychology to make as much money as possible. It's partially about that, but psychology is a lot more complex than that. Psychology is not going mental because you're so miserable. Not, don't do the banker, don't do investment banker and spend 70 hours a week chasing money, then the market crashes. So what do? You jump up a fucking building and kill yourself. Well, that was worth it, wasn't it? And that's another thing he says, is that, people always assume that the financial plan they have now is the one that's going to fit them for the rest of their life, but it doesn't. So let's go back to the example of someone like a lawyer or an investment banker. It's all about chasing the money, hell, go for whatever, screw your friends, screw your family, just make the money, screw your morals. But then they look back when they're middle-aged, a lot of these people, and they think, shit, I wasted the last 20 years living in a cubicle, living on the end of a phone or chasing money when I didn't live. Then you have the other people who decide that life's about, I don't need a lot of money. I don't need fancy things. I don't need to chase bigger houses, bigger paychecks. I want to be really happy just being as I am. And that's great for 20 years or so. And then maybe, they become parents in their 30s. And by the time their kids are, 10 years old, they're thinking about paying for education and everything. They think, shit, I should have spent more time chasing money. Damn, I don't have enough money. What am I going to do now? End of history fallacy. You're never at the end of history. You are making history and you change. So people assume that they're the same. There's usually, it's not unusual now to go through 4 different 20-year periods in terms of what you want from life and what you want from work and what you want from money. But people always think, I'll stick with this. Now, that's important with moderation. Sticking with things with moderation is important. So Morgan says that if you aim to save a little bit of money every month, invest a little bit of money every month, spend a bit of time with your family every month, make a little bit more money every month, balance is important because you can stick at it. So he talks about the Howard, whose name I can't remember, the janitor mentioned in the first few chapters. I should remember. My head's a bit foggy at the moment. I don't feel 100%, so I do apologize. But the janitor who died with 8 million in the bank, he gave a plan, time to work, and he was able to stick at that plan because it wasn't drastic. He didn't put all his money away. He lived modestly, but he didn't live, he wasn't on the poverty line. He didn't choose to be on the poverty line. So he just gave the compounding time to really, 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 really work. Same with Warren Buffett, who we've talked about in previous chapters. Charlie Munger has said the first rule of compounding is never to interrupt it unnecessarily. Just let it happen. Imagine if your financial plan was like your skin. You have it all your life. When you're pale, or certain countries, you're pale, The UK is not a good example for this, is it? Because if you look at who's in charge of the UK and how racist they are and their policies, it seems like the worst thing on earth is to have brown skin. But you have all these pale people who are desperate to get a tan so lie in the sun. And when they're about 40, their skin looks about 80, and then when they're about 60, they have skin cancer and everything. Whoops, bad plan. So, if they had just lived normally, get a bit of sun, so you get your vitamin D, moderation, everything's fine. You still got your skin. Yeah. So, oh dear. He also talks about ages. So a 5-year-old boy, he says, thinks the best job in the world is to drive a tractor, because his idea of having a great job, it starts with, beep, beep, brum, brum, big red tractor, big blue tractor. But then when they're a bit older, they think, hang on, maybe tractor drivers don't make enough money. It's not that prestigious. So maybe I'll be a lawyer. So then they think, right, I know now, I definitely want to be a lawyer for the rest of my life. Law school, university, all the costs, here I come. And then they're a lawyer for 10 years and they think, wow, this sucks. I'm working long hours. Unless you're a partner, it's a crappy job. You're just a pen pusher. And you get it's not good. It's not where I want to be. I've wasted the last 10, 15 years of my life. So then maybe they become, they take a lesser paying job. And then a lesser paying job 10 years later, they think, man, I should have made a bit more money. And then they think, right, I'm going to be a stay-at-home parent or something. And, something like 29% of stay-at-home parents in the States have a university degree, or a college degree as it's called. Now imagine the numbers in the UK are just about similar, and only 25% or something like that actually have a job related to their university degree or college degree. Once again, it's because people change. You've got to allow for change. You've got to be patient. Morgan Housel mentions the book written by the psychologist Daniel Kahneman and the investment writer. Look up the book, it's a really good book. And the investment writer says one of the things that most surprised me about Daniel Kahneman is his ability to just change like that, drop everything, So they could spend ages and ages and ages writing a chapter and they really work on it. And then the next day, Kahneman comes back with a revision of the chapter that's completely different, totally different. And the co-writer said to him, how can you do that? We spent so long on it. Kahneman says, I have no sunk costs. A sunk cost is a cost that's already paid. You can't get it back. It's not going to make a difference. Sunk costs in trading, for example, or investing, or, in a business or in financial assets. It's about, right, I'm making a loss now, so I need to get out. What I paid for it, I've paid, I can't change it. So that's your sunk cost. But what sunk costs tend to do is they tend to make people hold on to it. For example, in investment, but I put 5,000 into it and I had 10,000 up and now I'm down to 5,000. It'll go up again because they desperately don't want to lose that 5,000. You lose the 5,000 the moment you spend it. So that's how Kahneman deals with sunk costs. And it goes back to, the plan you made 5 years ago may not be working now, but it's regret is when you think, damn, I need to go into fifth gear and work like mad to correct that mistake. Moderation is the key. I need to make a bit more money, so don't go mad about it. Remember, if you think to make the money that you wish you'd made earlier, you're going to be working for 18 hours a day for the next 10 years. You're probably not, maybe spend slightly less time on it so that for the next 10 years you can make a lot more money, but you've got to be able to stick at it. And you'll be able to stick at it if you don't become completely obsessed and ignore everything else. So stick at it, and over the long term, you'll do better. The most successful people I know career-wise, and this is such an anomaly now, has had the most successful person, I think, 2 jobs in their whole life in the same industry, and they've risen right to the top. It's taken 20 odd years, 22, 23 years. But stayed in the same industry, only changed firms once and risen right to the top. And because they're right at the top, like you're with any industry, if you're right at the top, you do very, very, very well. There you go. You will change. Be aware of that. You can change your plans as well, but don't go mad with them, and you'll probably do pretty well. All right. Next chapter coming soon.